Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to a really quick session on guidelines over grades. I decided to do this session today because so many new coding professionals, and when I say new, I mean those that are embarking on the educational journey, they often focus on guidelines over grades to the extent that I decided to actually stop teaching coding because so many of the students were there just to get an A and not to actually learn coding. And I'm like, I'm here to teach coding, but they just wanted to get an A. So I wanted to talk about probably nine key things that I think is so very important. I have a video on this channel that talks about medical coding versus medical billing. And the very first thing that I'm going to tell you that is so very important is if you are embarking on this journey for medical coding, it is so very important that you do your research first and not get so excited that you just Google medical coding and then the first school that comes up in the browser, you sign up for. I heard another medical coding instructor say, probably about 2 weeks ago, that it makes no sense that you go to school for medical coding and billing, and you walk away with $20,000 and $30,000 worth of debt. In fact, I think I've heard four coding instructors say that in the last couple of years. So it's so very important that you do your research. Okay. So I think the first thing that's really important for me to share with you is that coders really play this crucial role in healthcare. And accurate coding supports billing and reimbursement. And so, if you are enrolling in a program and you're focusing on getting an A, you are missing the purpose of the journey. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the learning journey itself. There are many educational pathways that you could take to become a coder, right? You can do a certificate program, you can do an associate's degree in health information technology, you can get a bachelor's degree in health information management, or you could simply become certified by going through a training. So there are a couple of organizations out there today: the American Health Information Management Association, the American Academy of Professional Coders. I am a member of both organizations. They have served me well. But as my journey has progressed, in addition to having 11 national certifications, I'm also a member of more than just those two organizations that I mentioned. So, one of the things that I think is often misunderstood: healthcare is always going to be evolving. And having that solid understanding of anatomy and physiology and medical terminology and the law about healthcare is so very important. And that's really the foundation for your success. Now, because we are here live, for those of you who have tuned in live, I will be taking questions in the chat. So we're not going to be on here long, but I wanted to come on and kind of just talk about a few things. All right. So, having that solid foundation of medical terminology, anatomy, pharmacology, disease process, so very important, lays the foundation. Okay. Let's talk about grades over guidelines. Many students that I have encountered have what I like to call the check off the box mentality. All right, I did my work for the week, but they don't truly engage with the material. And engaging with the material requires you to some extent become one with it. When you're just checking off a box to say that you completed the assignment, you're not engaging with it, this can actually lead to short term memorization instead of long term understanding. And so embracing coding guidelines helps for a more rich learning experience, but it also helps you develop critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, which are really important for real world coding. Artificial intelligence has been a part of coding for a while. A lot of people think, oh, we just got artificial intelligence in coding. Absolutely not. We've had a form of intelligence for a while. It's called natural language processing, NLP. Look it up. You'll see that it's really a thing, right? So becoming one with the material is more important than getting an A. As an employer, I would rather hire someone who has a B and knows those guidelines than someone who sits in an interview and tells me, "Oh, I got all these A's in school." So, let's talk about actually doing the work. So, active learning is really the key to becoming a successful medical coder. If you are looking for a program, one of the things that I would recommend that you learn, does the school offer live lectures? Many learners today are going to school online. And so when you go to school online, you are working at your own pace, but you really need to have some type of weekly interaction, whether you attend live or you listen to the recording, you need to have someone break down the material for you so that you can really, engage with the material. Now, if you attend live, you can ask questions. You can be a part of, real world applications. And this approach really helps you build a foundation for future success as opposed to just checking off of boxes saying, I did this assignment, but you don't really learn it. Now, when you do the process that I am describing, you're going to have some challenges, okay? Because you're going to get really into it. So, how do you overcome those challenges? Number one, staying energetic, right? Staying engaged. One of the things I will also tell you is that you can, and I had a student overdo it where she was like burned out from just trying to I told her to engage with the material and she was engaging with the material to the extent where she wasn't really doing anything else on a day-to-day basis, and so she got burned out. But as you attack the guidelines little by little by little, that's going to be critical to your long term success. Also, if you're in a program online or face to face, I would encourage study groups. Study groups can provide you with a sense of belonging. You can encourage each other so that you're not going through this journey alone. So, now let's talk about some other strategies for success. I would also recommend that you, while you're in school, attend workshops and webinars face to face, right? Because when you're a new individual trying to break into this field, you need people to see you. It's one thing to be in a webinar or be in a workshop virtually, but it's something magical about actually seeing individuals, professionals face to face. It's so very, very, very important. What else do I want to tell you? Now, oh, somebody asked me, should I join professional organizations while I'm in school? And honestly, I literally have mixed thoughts about this. Why? I don't know about you, but 32 years ago, when I entered healthcare as a medical assistant, when I started my program, I didn't have a lot of money for like food, right? So while I think student membership is beneficial, you got to weigh your options. And not being a member does not prevent you from engaging. So, really think about things you can do to alleviate your stress because going through a program can be stressful. All right. I'm not going to be on here long. I got a couple more things I want to talk about. Resilience and growth mindset. So, when you're learning coding, having a growth mindset is hands down my number one tip for overcoming challenges and achieving success. Embrace the challenges as opportunities for you to get stronger, right? Learn from your mistakes. Don't try to be this perfect coder. Just embrace the journey. Learn from your feedback and set goals where you are attacking the material just a little bit per day and you're not trying to overdo it. Okay. So, one more thing I wanted to share about resources and tools, and I want to tell you about three individuals that I have worked with in the past who they had some wins, and I asked them if I could share their journeys with you. They said yes, and so I'm going to tell you. So, what tools? AHIMA, AAPC has lots of tools that are available. The other mistake that I see people do when they're trying to learn coding is that they buy all of these resources and then it gets overwhelming and then you don't even use half of them, right? So be very strategic in what resources you are going to use because then you will find that you won't be as overwhelmed. I learned coding on the job and then went to school for it afterwards. So like 3 years, no, maybe see, 8 years after I was kind of doing it on the job. And when I was in my program, I knew how to flip through the book, right? But I didn't really know um, all the rules, the guidelines, which is what I'm telling you are important today. All right. So, again, we are here live. I will take a few questions at the end, but I want to tell you about three individuals that I've worked with in the past who I helped them focus on guidelines over grades. Okay. So, first, I want to tell you about Maria. So Maria actually began her journey in medical coding for with this passion for healthcare, right? But Maria struggled with the complexity of the guidelines, right? I meant to have my ICD-10 CM guidelines with me today, but they're like 115 pages. So Maria was struggling with those guidelines. And when we got together in a Zoom room, I was like, okay, what's going on, Maria? And she kept saying, my grades, my grades, my grades. And she was often overwhelmed and honestly frustrated, sometimes really angry when she didn't get a perfect score. So after we had a little chat, Maria shifted her focus from grades to understanding the material deeply. She started attending workshops, joining study groups, was engaging with her classes, and she developed a growth mindset, not a grades mindset, but a growth mindset. Having the growth mindset transformed Maria's approach to focusing on learning. She found that understanding the coding principles helped her grades improve, and she started to love the process. Now, yes, her grades did improve, but today, where's Maria? She is a CCS, certified coding specialist. She's working at a large hospital, and at her organization, she is known as the professional who helps others focus on having that guidelines over accuracy, perspective, and she's doing really, really, really good. In fact, she told me how much she was making. I'm not going to tell you, but when she told me, I was like, "Whoa, you making how much?" But she said she wanted me to know that because if I had not, we just gonna say beat her up a little bit. And when I say beat her up, I mean I just gave her some tough love because her focus was wrong. All right, so that was one person. My next person is James. James. Oh my gosh. James. Whew, okay. So James was working in a completely different industry, like most people are when they decide to go into coding. And so James actually faced several issues. He struggled with medical terminology. He was discouraged because his grades weren't as high as he thought they should be. He kept saying, I'm an older adult. I'm an older adult. I should be able to do this. And so I met with James and I recommended, because I saw James and I was going to be boxing it out, right? On the Zoom. So I recommended this person at, I think it was AAPC. And I connected James with that person. So then James started attending workshops and conferences. I mean, I'd be at the conference, the national conference, and James was there. And so he came up to me at the conference last year. Where were we last year? Oh, Baltimore, the AHIMA conference in Baltimore. And he said, I knew you were going to be tough on me. So I'm glad that you recommended me to this person, which actually happened to be a man. And he said, but if it wasn't for you pulling my coattail, forcing me to um, focus on the guidelines, the importance of needing help. James was like, I'm not used to asking for help. I didn't want to ask for help. So James, through persevering, and James was actually a truck driver. I should mention that because he told me I should mention that. He was a truck driver. What kind of truck driver? Long haul truck driver or something like that. I don't know. But James was like on the road a lot, right? But anyway, so he persevered, he was committed to his growth, and as a result, his confidence improved, right? And so now, today, James is actually presenting at local conferences. He's sharing his journey with others, his insights. And I am so proud of him because um, he had to fight the biggest mountain, and the mountain was him because he just did not want to take advice from the path that, I was explaining to him that he should go through. All right, so I got one more person to tell you about, and that is Sarah. So Sarah was a student. Sarah had all A's. And I kept saying, Sarah, don't focus on guidelines. Sarah was like, I must get an A. I must walk across the stage, summa cum laude, magna cum laude, something like that. And I was like, Sarah. She focused so much on grades that, let me see, can I be honest? If I could be honest, somebody say honest in the chat. If I could be honest, somebody say honest in the chat. Because I got to tell you something. I have to tell this, and actually, we talked about this recently when Sarah reached out to me. Um, there was a reason why Sarah was getting A's. Okay. I got one person in the chat that said, be honest. The material in her program was so easy in that it was multiple choice. You got multiple attempts, and Sarah took advantage of the multiple attempts. She was, really good with okay, well, it was this one wasn't right the first time, so I'm going to do the other, right? And so I kept saying to Sarah, you are getting these quizzes and homework correct, but when we have our live session and we're doing practical activities where it's not multiple choice, coding is not multiple choice, Sarah would get them wrong every time. And so of course I sent Sarah a message. I was like, hey, let's connect and let's talk about your process, blah, blah, blah. So then that's when I discovered that Sarah was taking advantage of the multiple attempts on the assignments. And so that's how she was able to get A's. And I said to her, the activities that we are doing in our live sessions each week, those are the types of cases that you're going to see at work. Whoo, Sarah on the Zoom broke down and started crying. And she was crying because she was angry, because she said, why would they why would they make the material so easy? Why would they do this to me? And so I said, Sarah, we're not going to focus on things we can't control. We're going to focus on things that we can control. And so I said, you've got to spend time with your guidelines. You have to sit down and read, your guidelines. And Sarah was just like, I wasn't doing that. I was just focusing on getting A's. It was multiple choice. And so Sarah did a couple of things. After being angry and crying, she actually made me cry a little bit because she was just like, if you've ever been on Zoom and it's just, a one-on-one meeting and she's crying. So now I'm tearing up and I'm like, Sarah, you got to decide, do you want to learn coding, learn those guidelines and be employable? Or do you want to walk across the stage saying you got all A's? Now, of course, I'm going to be honest. At first, Sarah was like, I want both. I was like, Sarah, focus on the one thing that you want to do, which is learn how to code. All right. So Sarah began to volunteer at a local clinic. And and this is so funny, right? Because Sarah was volunteering at her local clinic, and she was like asking the coders and the billers, like, well, don't the guidelines say XYZ? And they were like, you're in school, you don't know about guidelines, you don't know about real world, right? So after a while, they started to listen to Sarah because the area was asking them about happened to us. And so today, and I met with Sarah probably 4 years ago, but she reached out to me recently. And today, Sarah mentors other coders, and she mentors them earlier in their career. And she tells them, you got to focus on guidelines over grades. That is the key. So that's all that I wanted to present to you today. If anybody, we got 5 minutes. If anybody has questions, you can type them in the chat. But after 5 minutes, I'm going to watch TV. It's 6:55 here in Chicago, and it's time for me to put my PJs on and get ready for bed. So who's enrolled in coding school right now? Who's looking for to join a program? What are you guys doing? And I tell everybody the guidelines are so important. And I mentioned this earlier. I went to school for coding. So I started in healthcare in 92. 2000, I was a manager at a local hospital. I had just finished my master's degree. And I was like, let me go to school and learn, coding. Um, the rules, right? I'm so glad I did. That was 24 years ago. I'm so glad I did because now I just know them coming out my ears because I spend time reading them and thinking about them and researching things that I don't know. Even, 32 years later in this industry, you never stop learning. And the minute you stop learning is when you stop growing. All right. Well, I don't see any questions, and so I'm going to end. I may come on and do some more things. I did the 12 days of PCS this, what was it, December? So I may come on and do a couple of more things in the coming weeks. What would you guys like to see? I don't want to do 12 days of PCS because we already did that. A coding boot camp. I used to do coding boot camps here in Chicago. And someone asked me, would I do them again? Maybe, but it would have to be face to face. Why? Because I feel like when you're online, you're distracted, you just got all kind of things going on. But when you're face to face and everybody's going through their books and they are engaged, it's so amazing. So I have to see. I have not taught coding in almost a year, even though there are some schools that are still using my videos in their programs, but I personally have not taught coding in almost a year. And one of the main reasons that I stopped teaching is because people were so focused on grades, and I was just like, it's rough out here in these coding streets, and having all A's is not going to be enough. So, but no, Stephanie, I am not teaching coding. I have been thinking about doing a boot camp, but it would have to be face to face. Um, like a maybe 4.5 day boot camp. I'm thinking about it, but we're gonna focus on guidelines. We're gonna focus on guidelines because that's the name of the game. All right. Well, I don't see anybody else here. I hope you guys have a great evening, and I'll see what I'm gonna do next. I may do a guideline game or something. I'll think about it, and maybe I'll do something next week. We'll see. Everybody have a good evening.